Right Side Nation, Mike Hanley here with RightSideNews.com. Don't be left, be right. Just wanted to jump in here tonight. I wanted to do a little recap of Trump's rally and roundtable that was held in Duluth, Minnesota, which is up in the northeastern part of Minnesota. Looks like probably 200 or 300 miles north of Minneapolis, St. Paul. So in terms of the rally, it was high energy. Boy, did we have some chants going on. We heard "Lock her up." I mean, does it get any better than that? We had a lot of USA. We had a CNN sucks chant. I mean, my friends, this was high energy, dragon energy, American energy at its finest. And man, was this crowd pumping. I mean, this was top notch, folks. This was big league, my friends. So the rally that was held was just absolutely energizing. We had Laura Trump. We had a few other politicians that attended. We had Kevin McCarthy, who is potentially going to be the new Speaker of the House once we ship out Paul Ryan from Wisconsin. Vote him out. Paul Ryan, gotta go. Got to go. It's time. He's had enough. He's bought, he's paid for, and he is a swamp creature. Let's be real. Now, he may want a little bit of Trump's success, but that's only to make him look good. He's not really on board with the MAGA movement, and we want people who are going to be there, support Trump, and vote for his agenda and lead. We need leaders. We don't need people who are going to sit around and make a bunch of excuses about why we can't do things. We have to unleash the potential of this country. And I think this rally and round table speaks specifically to what Trump is trying to accomplish, and I think it points to it directly. So there was two terms that were used a couple times. So it is the superior forest. It's the superior natural forest. That's federal land. And then there's the Iron Range and the Cambrian, I believe, mountains or Cambrian hills. And it's sedimentary. So it's essentially high in iron. That's why it's called the Iron Range. So that's my best explanation of what they're talking about in terms of the Iron Range. Now, there's a bunch of precious metals in here, and I'm going to go through that a little bit, but there's a lot of natural resources, and iron specifically is found in this Iron Range, which makes complete sense. Like I said, I'm not an expert on the matter, but this was a big part. They talked about the superior national forest, and they talked about the Iron Range. And what I got out of it after sitting and watching this roundtable, people had the opportunity to speak, and what they're trying to do is get to these natural resources, perhaps that are on federal land, to unleash our economy so that we can supply aluminum, steel, iron, these different precious metals that are found in these areas, so that we can build our defense, so that we can not outsource what we're trying to do, but we can export, I guess is a better way to put it. So the people of Minnesota, northeastern Minnesota, need to be able to get to these resources, take them, and then ship them where they need to go, whether that's somewhere within the United States, if it's aluminum to build up our military, if it's other natural resources, then they can export those either to other states or to other countries. Hopefully countries that have our best interests in mind, especially if it's aluminum, because we don't want to sell the wrong stuff to the wrong people. Fusion GPS, uranium, we don't want any more Hillary Clinton mistakes. So that's just kind of what I wanted to jump into. But before I get more specific on on these precious metals and what's going on in northeastern Minnesota, because I think there is a buzz in the air there. I think Trump is garnering more and more support. And the one thing that I really like that he said, and this was in the rally, this was not during the roundtable, but it was in the rally. He goes, "Don't give up. Don't ever give up." He said one more speech, and I could have won the state. So, I mean, this guy, he's always looking to push the bar higher. He's always looking for that higher level of success and in reaching those goals, hitting those numbers. I mean, he's always saying the numbers look great. You know, he's talking about ratings, he's talking about approval, he's talking about all these different things. He's talking unemployment at a low rate, he's talking GDP rising, he's talking about wages rising. And we're looking at all these little things, and he is the epitome at this point of success within the first 18 months to 2 years of any president ever. The amount of stuff that he is pushing forward, that he is getting done, it's top of the line. It's the best there is, folks. It's the best there is. So I'm just going to go over a little bit. There was 3.4 million jobs created in a year and a half. Now, I think Trump was saying, you know, if we would have shot for 2 million, the media would have said, no, you can't do it, you're crazy. 3.4 million. Could you imagine if he would have gotten up and said in the first 18 months of my campaign, I'm going to help create 3.4 million jobs? Absolutely no way. And that has to do with tax cuts, and it has to do with minimizing the red tape, cutting out the restrictions that are placed upon these people, these companies, these small businesses, so that they can hire, that they can grow, they can expand, they can build factories, anything that they need, more space, anything that they need. These tax cuts and the elimination of these restrictions is allowing them to grow. And that's what we're seeing. And you can hear it in these people's voices. I mean, you can hear it. They're emotional. They're tearing up. They're thanking Trump. Thank you, Mr. Trump. Thank you, President Trump. Thank you, Mr. President. Those are the things they're saying, and you can see how much it means to them. I mean, this is where they're from. This is where they grow up. They talk about the land of 1,000 lakes. I mean, the clearly based on what I read and what I heard from these people, there's so much untapped natural resources in that state that they just want the ability to go after it. They want ability to mine. They want the ability to dig. They want the ability to get their hands on these resources so that they can not only fund their businesses, but their businesses. A lot of that money goes in the taxes, go into the educational fund. So without this economy booming in Minnesota, the less money that's going into the educational system. And everybody knows that the basis of opportunity in this country, it all starts with an education. And that starts at the lowest level. So hopefully we can see this economic growth in northeastern Minnesota and continued prosperity in this area. I mean, like I said, the support, the energy, it was top notch, top notch. So there was a few things. So we talked about the 3.4 million jobs. The unemployment claims are the lowest in 44 years. The deregulation, the tax cuts. Also, Trump talked about the right to try, and the right to try speaks specifically to somebody who has an illness or a terminal illness, and they want to try this new medication. They want to try a new medical treatment or some type of surgery that is cutting edge or maybe outside of the mainstream to give them a little bit of hope so that perhaps they can live on past their date that they don't, you got 6 months to live, something like that. They just want an opportunity. They want that hope. And this right to try gives people the ability, if they so wish, to try one of these new procedures rather than having to try to go to India or outside of the country to Mexico or Canada. That's what's been going on because there has been so much red tape put around these insurance companies in the healthcare industry. They're not allowed to essentially pay or allow somebody to experiment with this type of surgery. I would assume because there's too much liability. But if we cut out some of that red tape, we give the opportunity of a cutting edge doctor to perform some type of surgery or treat a client in the way that he thinks is best, assuming that it's it's within the realm of what's going to make them healthy, then we should give them that opportunity. I absolutely think that that's a no-brainer. So I just applaud President Trump for, kind of putting his neck out on the line there, and just pushing for this, just this little bit of extra hope, and that we can, either get people healthy or rejuvenate someone's life with either a terminal illness or some type of sickness or disease that somebody has. So I think that's just super cool. Um, we have, for the first time ever, the United States is now an exporter of energy. We are now, instead of an importer, we are now have eclipsed the imports versus our exports are larger than our imports. So then, therefore, we are now an exporter of energy. So we're unleashing the natural resources in this vast land that is the United States of America. And believe me, folks, we've got plenty of natural resources. As long as the EPA doesn't come in and say, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. I mean, they're worried about all these little streams, and that we're going to pollute them, and that we want to destroy them, and it's all going to hurt the ecosystem. We don't want any of that to happen. When we want things to be done, we want them to be done the right way so that it minimizes any damage to an ecosystem, to a community. We want things done the right way, just like we want legal immigration. We want legal business practices. We want ethics. We want business ethics, and we want these companies that are doing the digging, the mining, and trying to find and turn up these natural resources. We want them to do it the right way. And I think, as long as we have, some type of watchdog, we need people looking at what's going on, but we don't need all these little restrictions, red tape, regulations. We don't need all these little things, because all that does is get in the way of the rising economy. It prevents growth, and it costs a lot of money. When you have litigation, needless litigation, you're going to have a lot of money that's just bottled up. And it's bottled up in litigation, it's bottled up in these restrictions and regulations. So we need to cut these out, and we need to free the American economy for people to invest in small businesses, invest in these mines, whatever that might be, so that we can get our hands on these natural resources and continue to be an exporter of energy throughout the world, so that we can grow our local economies and on the national level grow the GDP. Trump talked about fair and reciprocal trade. He's hit this a bunch of times. We don't want to be taken advantage of anymore. Plain and simple. We just don't want to be taken advantage of. Military, $700 billion. Now, he did sign an omnibus bill. 700 billion of that was for the military, and he talked about, sometimes you have to concede a little bit to get what you want, and I think that's what he did on that bill. Now, it was one of the biggest and the largest bills that he has signed. He didn't want to do it, but I think he thought he had to bite the bullet for the military on that, and revamp, grow the military bigger, better, and stronger than it's been, so that we don't have to use it. That's the idea behind it. We want to be so strong and so powerful that we don't have to use it, because people know. They know. Hey, they know what's good. So I think we're growing. We're getting stronger. It's all positive. Um, I talked about the Iron Range. I talked about the Superior National Forest, and I want to get in a little bit into what people were talking about, and some of these figures. We have the timber industry, and what they're saying is they want 100% of the sales on the natural forest. So I think what's happening is when these companies cut timber in these national forests, I think there is some entity that is taking a portion of the money when that timber is being cut on national forest. So that timber is cut, and then there's 100%. You have 100%, and I think they're only getting maybe 50% of that. Now I don't know where that other 50% is going. It could be going to the federal government, but they're federal lands, and they are owned by the people. So it doesn't make sense to me as to why this money, if these private entities are going in, they have permits to go into the superior rainforest or superior forest, and they're sitting here and they're cutting timber. These are the natural resources of the land. They have permits. Why pay the federal government to it? It is owned by and of the people. So come on, let's be real here. Um, they talked about this area to be one of the most valuable pieces of land in the world. I mean, that's pretty striking. Perhaps it is. Um, Also, Trump signed an executive order on critical minerals. This was in the roundtable. It allows us to be, instead of being dependent on foreign countries for critical minerals, we're allowing ourselves to produce them ourselves and to open up these federal lands. There was Jason Lewis, who's very popular up there in Minnesota, and he guaranteed a Trump win in 2020. So there's something going on up there. There's a lot of enthusiasm. Like I said, this rally, it was buzzing. We had the USA, we had the CNN sucks, we had the locker up. I mean, we had the best of the very best. And you can just see it. You can see it on people. I mean, this is our Super Bowl, folks. This is what it's all about. I mean, people are fired up and they're ready. They're sick and tired of hearing the nonsense. They're sick and tired of it. They just can't take it anymore. And now there's so much winning. There's so much winning. We're winning the Super Bowl of America, which is patriots like us fighting and just making it happen. And that's what it's all about. These hardworking blue collar Americans getting out there, doing the mining, doing the hard, dirty work, the jobs that are not only going to have immediate impact for these companies, but there's also secondary jobs. So we're going to have these minerals that some of these companies, these construction companies and these digging companies are going to get their hands on these minerals, but then there's secondary jobs, companies that either maybe distribute these minerals. I mean, that's right there. That's a secondary job. You need these goods to get from point A from point to point B, and that takes some type of freight company, maybe the railway. I don't know exactly the most effective and efficient way to transport these types of goods, considering it's in northeastern Minnesota. But I mean, there's a lot of secondary jobs that are going to be positively affected by this type of growth. Um, Obama administration had 600 major rules, which was an equivalent to $100 million in waste. I talked about that earlier with these regulations. There was $100 million in waste with all these different types of major rules in terms of mining and gathering these resources. That is one new rule every 5 days. And I'm sure that had something to do with the EPA and everything, where we're trying to be green and sustainable and save the world. Well, really what we did when we were having these type of rules implemented is we were destroying our economy. We were destroying our ability to reach in to these forests, to reach into these iron ranges, to get our natural resources. And instead, we were just rule after rule after rule, all this money tied up in these regulations and litigation and trying to get these permits, all this nonsense. Cut out the red tape and let these people go to work. This is what they know. They've been mining on these lands for hundreds of years. It's nothing new. And look, Minnesota is one of the most beautiful states in America, especially in the summertime. I mean, in the winter, mm, I'm not gonna go there. Okay, I've been there in the middle of the winter, as a matter of fact, to Minnesota, Minneapolis, and I've been up to north central Minnesota before. It's a beautiful state. I mean, it's something special. There is a withdrawal proposal, and the withdrawal proposal covers 333,000 acres. And in this withdrawal was withdrawing these companies and these permits and from allowing them to mine and dig in this area. So there's 4 billion tons of copper and precious metals in this 233 million acre. So there what like I talked about earlier is this area, these 233 million acres, this is what funds the educational system in Minnesota. So that's why not only is it important for the companies and the secondary jobs, but it's also important for the educational system so that these jobs can be taxed and the money can be pumped into the educational system. And this is the one thing that I never really understood in this economic debate when people talk about, oh, well, what are we going to do? We're going to bring back jobs and we're going to do all this stuff. But these people, they need to pay more taxes. They need to do this. All these one percenters. And this is, I mean, this is just basic economics. This is basic common sense, which is not so common anymore. Is that if we can bring the jobs back here from another country, let's say a China, or if we can the red tape, cut out the regulations, and we can allow these people to mine and dig on their own land, it is going to generate revenue, and that revenue, it can be taxed. It can be taxed. It allows us to tax it. So when you bring back jobs, when you cut out the regulation, when you get revenue going on the local level, we can tax that. So there's a tax base when our economy is thriving. I mean, this is common sense, but so many people don't even think about it. They just say, "Oh, we're going to get some manufacturing jobs back. Oh, well, it's only going to help a few people." That helps directly what the Democrats want, which is us to be taxed more. So instead of taxing us more, why don't we bring back the jobs here to America, keep the tax rate lower than it was when Obama was at like what 40%, bring it down to 15%, get the economic growth and widen the tax base. And if you widen the tax base, you don't have to have taxes that high. You can lower them and you have a larger pot to pick from. Yeah, yeah. Who would have thunk it? Unbelievable. That's just basic. That's just basic thinking. I mean, I've thought of that before. It's not like I'm trying to brag here. It's just like this is just common sense. If you can't think about it, then I mean, anyhow. I digress. I digress. Um, Trump talked about tariffs, and this was something that kind of goes along with the tax base. Is when we increase our tariffs, the amount of money that is pouring into the treasury increases, right? So instead of racking up tons and tons and tons of debt, we are putting tariffs on goods that are coming into our country. One, it allows, so if the prices were down here on these imports because China was dumping steel into our country, for example, you put a tariff on it, boom, it increases the price. And not only that, it makes our companies on this level far more competitive. And then on top of that, you have that tariff, this chunk with that. So instead of the prices being here, they're raised to here. So you have some American quality over here versus cheap Chinese imports, especially steel. I know this because the manufacturer used to work for manufactured stainless steel sinks. In China, China was always down here on price. Well, now you tax the imports, boom. That is the money that is going into the treasury, the United States Treasury. So instead of racking up all this debt to 21 trillion dollars, when all this money is coming into our country, when we're charging tariffs on imports, that money is going into the treasury. So instead of taxing our own people, we're taxing other countries and we're getting that money. So I know in a way this is just switching around a tax base, but at the same time, we're not taxing our own companies. We're not taxing our own people. We're taxing people that are dumping product into our country at a very cheap and inexpensive price and not very high quality. And now we're taxing them on doing that. So it's like, look, maybe make a better product. And if maybe the products get better, then maybe we can look at lowering the tariffs. But, I think it's six one way, half a dozen the other. But you got to look at it. It all has to make sense. It all has to make sense. And it hasn't made sense for a long time. And now we're seeing Trump is willing to stand up and fight for our country. He's willing to sit and fight for our local companies. And we're not going to get pushed around anymore. And this is what Trump was talking about early on in terms of the rally that went on. And I kind of want to get into that a little bit. Um, and I talked about the different chants. I mean, this arena had about 8 to 9 thousand people. It was packed. There was people out in the parking lot. I mean, this was a party, man. This was like a tailgate. And this was 2016 election throwdown. I mean, folks, this, like I said, this is our Super Bowl, and we're fighting, and we're going. And it's not just a year; it's not every year. This is like our World Cup, but on a greater scale. We have just like the World Cup once every 4 years. The World Cup's going on. We have this shot, and we have a 4 year stretch, and we got to make the best of it. And if we can make the best of it now, I can guarantee you in 2020, Trump's going to win. They talked about some other statistics. Food stamps, the lowest in 8 years. Um, Trump said that the unemployment for women is the lowest in 65 years. So it was the lowest that it had been in 18 years. Now the unemployment rate for women is the lowest in 65 years. Imagine that. We had Laura Trump come up. She talked about Trump. She talked about him and how he didn't have to do this. He didn't have to run. He had a nice life. He could have rode off into the sunset, watched his sons, his grandkids, his daughters, and their children, watch them grow up and just live a nice, luxurious life. He could go out and play golf every single day. Now they talk about, oh, well, Trump plays so much golf. The difference between Trump and Obama playing golf is Trump uses golf as a business tactic. And not so much that he weasels somebody into doing something, but it's how he gets to know people. It's how he gets a feel in his gut. It's the sense that he gets. It's the ability for him to establish these relationships, maybe that are a little rocky. I mean, look at Kim Jong Un. Kim Jong Un, he never knew this guy, but he worked for 7 months to get a meeting with him, and they hit it off. So it's about building this rapport. And Laura Trump is right. Um, this is this is not something that he had to do. It's absolutely not something that he had to do, but he did it because he loves the country and he loves the people of this country and he realizes what it means to all of us and it means just as much to him. And I saw it in the energy. I saw it in the people that were at the rally, and I'm starting to see it a little bit more humble, a little bit less arrogant Donald Trump. And I'm starting to see that it's really starting to sink in. He's been fighting so hard and so long. He's not about to quit. He's not about to stop. But I think he's able to be in these moments a little bit. He's able to just to sit there and just really like look on people's faces, see their expression, see the energy, see how much it means to people. that he's up there fighting and they're fighting right there with him. I mean, just like the centipedes on Reddit, T under D. It's all of us are out here. We're all fighting for it, and it means the world to us, and I think it means the world to him. And I'm starting to see that. I'm starting to kind of see glimpses of this humble Donald Trump, and not humble in a soft way. I mean humble in this like, wow, this is cool. Like this is starting to really pick up, and we're starting to really click on all cylinders here. I mean, I think Trump's just starting to hit his stride right now. And oh, is that a beautiful thing? I mean, just think about the obstructionists. I mean, think about these Democrats. He talked about it. A vote for a Democrat is a vote for Nancy Pelosi. And this lady, Nancy Pelosi, I think about her and Maxine Waters. I mean, these two characters, they're so far beyond the pale, they don't even get it anymore. I mean, they just lost it. They're out of tricks. They've got nothing left. They've met their match, and all they can do is go down kicking and screaming, wah, crying all the way to the bank. And once they get to the bank, the vault is empty, my friends. There's nothing left. There's nothing to grab. They've got no more straws. They've got nothing. And I think that's what scares them the most because I mean, they're playing chess, like a normal guy, and Trump is playing 7D underwater chess on these cats. I mean, he's just like skirt, 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 you know, bobbing and weaving, and I mean, they just look, oh, he passed us. What? Where is he? He doesn't. We don't know what's going on. We've completely lost it. So they're losing it. The liberals' minds, they're exploding. It's collectively exploding, not only on what he's doing, but a little bit more on the things that he says, but it's because they can't understand it, they can't grasp it, they can't get it, that this is being done for the people and not some political elite establishment that people that sit up in Washington, D.C. think that they know the best thing for the people up in northeastern Minnesota and how they need to mine their lands and care for their streams and their water and their communities. I mean, people are sick and tired of the bullshit. No more. We're not taking it anymore. And that's why we have to get out and we have to be heard and we have to lead and we have to know that we're on the right side. RightSideNews.com. That's why we bought it, folks. I bought this website with my buddy P Crapity at PCRAPIDY at P Crapity on Twitter. He's my buddy. We bought it in November when Trump won the 2016 election, and we bought it on the idea that we're not conservative or we're not Republicans or we're not the whole idea. And people will say, oh, I'm probably all right. I got these crazy ideas. I don't care. Whatever. If you think I got bad ideas, put a comment down here. Let me know why, and I'll talk to you about it. I'll have a conversation. The one thing that I always talk to, and I talk to my mom about this and some of my family members, and they don't always agree with me politically. The one thing I always say is the liberals claim to be the most tolerant people, but they are in fact the ones who are least tolerant. Because once you say something, and it only is words, once you say something that they don't agree with, they will attack you and they will be vicious and it gets personal quickly. And I don't want to attack anybody. I'm not about that. But at the same time, if you're going to attack me, I'm going to fire back. I'm not just going to sit there and take the nonsense. If you want to have a legit conversation with me, let's sit down and let's be free thinkers. I mean, this is specifically what Candace Owens has been talking about for quite some time. That we have to say what we think, what we feel, and what we believe is the right thing to do. And that's what the MAGA movement is all about. So that all just came to my mind. Sorry, I'm kind of getting off of, Duluth, Minnesota, and northeastern Minnesota. But, it's this whole idea that the movement is a great thing. I mean, I have here that The crowd, predominantly white, is cheering for the lowest unemployments of blacks and Hispanics in history. And they're up in the Midwest, northern Midwest, and people are going to sit here and say, "Oh, they're racist." I mean, how can these people be racist when they're sitting there and they're cheering for the lowest unemployment of blacks and Hispanics in the history of the country? I mean, I think what Obama did is he brought, especially for the African American community, he brought up the atrocities of slavery, and I understand why. In that it was an absolutely unjust thing. And people, I saw a tweet today, was talking about reparations for slavery. So that means because of slavery, blacks or African Americans get something in return. And I can't say that I'm not necessarily for reparations, in the true sense that because that happened, that whites maybe need to give some of their wealth to the black community. I don't know what type of reparations exactly we're talking about, but I think a lot of the reparations, the only way that it would happen would be to go through the federal government, and the federal government I don't think is any friend to the black community. And so, I think what happened is Barack Obama, he would talk about the injustices done to the black community, and I completely understand it. But I think rather than talking about what was happening and how to bring together, how to unite people and have a common ground and a mutual understanding of how we can go about moving forward, it was more about division. These people did this, and so they're the bad people, and they don't want what's best for you. That was essentially his message, and that continued. That I felt like the black and the white communities were never super close, but I felt like it was getting better, and I feel like it was healing, mostly because it was healing over time with black and whites in America. But what happened was is we had this first black president, and it seemed to further the divide between the white and the black community. And that was, it was such a shame because he had this. And not only that, Barack Obama had a white mom and a black dad. So I mean, a lot of people will call that mixed. I mean, of course, he was the first African American president, but he was also half white. And I think he ran mostly on the grounds of being a black president, and I understand why. There was a lot of political motivation for that. There was going to be a lot of African American turnout, and I don't blame him for that. But what I do blame him for is sowing the seeds of division, and I think that's absolutely what happened under his presidency. And so, we have these people in Duluth, Minnesota, in the northeastern part of the country, predominantly white area, and they're cheering for blacks, they're cheering for Hispanics, and they want the best. They want the best for these people. I mean, come on, folks. Let's unite. Let's be real. Let's be free thinkers. Um, you know, Trump talked a little bit about obstructionists. They want to take away the tax cuts. They want to hinder American energy. We talked about America now becoming an exporter of energy, and they want to put illegal immigrants first. And Trump wants security at the border. He wants legal immigration, but first and foremost, he wants to care about the people of this country. He wants to care for the lost people in the inner cities, in the United States inner cities, predominantly African American people. We want to put American first, and we want to put a close next legal immigrants that are merit based. We no longer want a lottery. We want merit based immigration. So when people are coming to this country, they are set up for success. And I talked about that last night. We also have, there's two things. These are the last two things I'm going to talk about because this video is about 40 minutes long. Veterans choice. So there's no more waiting in line. So veterans, instead of having to go to the veteran administrations for treatment, go to the VA hospital. They can get local treatment from a doctor and pay the bill. That's cheaper a lot of times because we don't have all the overhead with these VA hospitals. We have somebody go in, they see a qualified doctor in the area. People don't have to travel as far. They get more timely health care. And the facilities will probably be even better. And on top of that, we're not going to have to pay for this overhead with these massive VA hospitals where people are waiting 1, 2, 3, 10 weeks to go see a doctor, and then within that time something small becomes massive, and somebody gets an illness or a disease and they end up dying because they can't go see a local doctor. So instead of having this system set up to where only the veterans can go to one place, we're going to be able to pick and choose where we want to go. And that was another thing that he talked about, was something that he's passing. It's going to be called association healthcare, and it's going to allow companies and people to come together and form groups to get healthcare. So I kind of think of it as like a credit union, but for healthcare, where people in a local area can team together and become a group and get better pricing on healthcare. Having associated healthcare is what Trump is trying to push. So I just wanted to sit down. It's about 12:45 now on the West Coast. It is now it's Saturday, June 23rd, and it's just been an absolute pleasure. I thank you so much for turning in. When I saw what went on in Duluth, things are turning around. I'm starting to see it. I'm excited about it. We need to continue to push, and we just need to continue to keep America great again. And then once America is great again, we got to keep it great. And that's our slogan for the 2020, Keep America Great. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So just tip of the cap to President Donald Trump. Tip of the cap to the people in Duluth, Minnesota. It was very eye-opening. I didn't realize all of the natural resources and the precious minerals that we have. And I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of economic growth. So this is Mike Hanley with RightSideNews.com. Don't be left, be right. Love you, Right Side Nation. See you soon.